by the right of the Council, by the will of the Force, welcome back into another episode of the galaxy-famous, Halcyon-approved Jedi Talk podcast. I am one of your many co-hosts on the High and Regular Council, Tom Oakrey. You are following us at Jedi Talk Podcast on Instagram, Jedi Talk on TikTok, and YouTube.com/Jedi Talk. Brad's not here today. He's still out blazing the bourbon trail over there in North Carolina, so we'll hear from him next week. But joining me across the HoloNet, as always, is the man, the myth, the legend, as Brad says. Winston's his biggest fan. He's not on Batu. Evan T. Boucher. Evan, how the hell are you today?
Diga and good journey. Well, I gotta have somebody be my biggest fan, so I'm honored to be Jackson and Winston.
There you go.
I'd say it's Jackson, but he's not yelling at me at the moment.
At the moment.
I don't want to take any more of our time. Yeah, at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't want to take any more of our time. I want to get into this awesome episode we have.
Yeah, this
amazing Starcruiser friends.
Absolutely. This is incredibly special today here on Jedi Talk, and we teased this a bit when we were discussing the Halcyon. You guys know us, Galactic Starcruiser. It's in our blood forever. You know, I don't know if I said this on the podcast yet. It's forever. On Evan's shirt. I got it tattooed on my right calf. It's together forever.
Wow.
And there we go. Yeah, I'm about to introduce here. And why don't I just segue into this? We have amazing special guests for something incredible that's going on within the Starcruiser community, guys. So right here on Jedi Talk, I just want to turn it over to Carrie, because we have a lot of people here on this call with us, guys. Carrie, welcome to Jedi Talk. Can you introduce your scoundrels you got here with you?
Thank you. It is my honor. I am beyond excited. The scoundrels I have with me are Ben Daughtrey, executive producer of the documentary about the Starcruiser that I'm about to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
My husband, Jonathan Hawpe, who is jack of all trades, writer, pitch deck getter together, and supporter in all ways. We have Carrie Coaplen, our lead researcher, and the Kenzie Greer, our predator, who is cam person, editor, sound, writer. She does it all. That's the crew.
That's the crew. So, yeah, you said it. Documentary. I love documentaries. My favorite one currently right now is The Last Dance about the Chicago Bulls, but I'm thinking that this one coming up by your crew here might top it. So why don't you tell us all we can know about this? What's going on?
Thank you. So the documentary is called Halcyon Daze, the final Voyages of Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser. And it's a feature-length doc. We are in footage mode right now. We have a rough cut of the trailer, but probably what you want to know is that the idea behind it, which is let me tell you a little about me briefly.
Please, yes.
I'm a public... What's that?
I said, please, yeah. Tell us all about you. Yeah.
So I am a public educator. I teach high school seniors dual credit college writing. I have a PhD in rhetoric and composition. I'm just kind of a regular person, and got onto the Starcruiser to celebrate my husband's 50th birthday because he's a huge Star Wars fan. I'm a Star Wars fan, but not a super fan. So I get obsessed with it. In fact, I watched Evan's video with Taylor. It was so wonderful. And that was part of my deep dive into everything. I wanted to have a great trip for him to know all the stuff. He didn't want to be spoiled, but I was going to lead him. So I thought, I'm just going to get into this. The more I got into it, the more obsessed I got. I went on the first cruise and was blown away completely. And then I became more obsessed than my husband, going back another time in June with strangers as sweet mates, June of 23, then went back again in August with my brother and my nephew and my husband's second cruise, and then of course we went on the fourth cruise for the documentary shoot. And between the third and fourth cruise, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about making a documentary. I have no business. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just like, I think this needs to happen, because how does somebody like me, who is not a super Star Wars fan. Sorry, Jedi Talk folks. I respect, love you. How did I get so into this thing? Like, why did I get so obsessed? Like, costuming, researching, backstories, could not stop talking about it. I'm in the Caribbean visiting people in August, and I'm talking to my husband about it. And he says to me, hey, I think I have an idea. We're soaking in the Caribbean. And he goes, I have another idea about my character. I'm like, my job is done here. We are all in.
Man.
So I want to make it, try to figure out how this happens to me, how it happened to me, how it happens to so many others. I mean, our executive producer had really.
Well, I can tell the story of how this. So it's pretty funny. I was at a screening at a documentary at a local museum. Ran into Jonathan and Carrie. They're like, "Would you come over to our house and try to talk us out of this idea we have for a documentary?" So I'm like, "Sure." So I came over. I'd never heard of the experience, which shows how poorly promoted it was. So they're like telling me all about this and downloading it, and I'm like, and then she told me her take. She's like, I'm just a normal person. How did I become obsessed with this? And I was like, I'm sorry to report that's a really good idea for a documentary, and you probably should pursue it. So that's how this whole thing got going. And then she's like, well, we have to go down there because it's closing. And I'm like, it's closing? What are you talking about? That's the most incredible thing I've ever heard of. Now you've really got a documentary.
Right.
So she's like, we got to get our ass down there. And she and Carly, I think Carly, didn't you help get these seats on this final Voyages? Right?
Carrie actually got all the seats except mine, and I got mine like the week before we left while my husband was out of town. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go stay with strangers in the Star Wars hotel again. And he's like your film crew, right? Like, you know them. I'm like, no, like real strangers from the internet. And he's like, I'm sure it's fine.
Same with that too. She was able to get it, and I'm like, okay, number one, I don't have any idea what I'm walking into at all, and the less I know, probably the better.
Yep.
And then two, you'll be staying with a bunch of people you've never met before. I'm like, great. Also, I'm not particularly into LARPing or cosplay, and they're like, and you need to be in universe, so you're gonna need to wear some kind of outfit. So I'm like, okay, fine. My wife picks out outfits for me from her wardrobe. And off we go. Yeah, and off we go. I mean, within like 2 weeks, we're just like, we're going to do this because it's closing. We have to.
Yep.
You know?
We need to shoot. We need to get the shoot. Like me going through it.
So then Kenzie and I had worked together a lot. I'm like, Kenzie, here's this thing. It's pretty wild. Have you ever heard of it? She's like, no. So then we throw the whole thing. I'll let Kenzie talk in a second. But like one of the coolest things was like, I didn't research it. I didn't do anything. And then we can get into that. But going down there surpassed anything I had ever experienced. I mean, it's completely singular. And I can see why anybody, I don't care if you're into Star Wars or not, as a piece of interactive theater, theme parkery, whatever. I mean, it's completely unique and singular and should be documented. My biggest fear going in was like, will they let us in with cameras? And we communicated with them, and they were like, fine.
Oh, wow.
So, because everybody else is doing it anyway. But let me shut up, and Kenzie can take over from there.
Yeah, so I was kind of a little opposite of Ben when it comes to research. I think that once Carrie got me involved, and because I'm definitely the type to like become hyper fixated with something and have like go all in. And so I had no idea what it was. And then Carrie tells me, and I'm like, I could see myself getting into this. And I found myself like calling Carrie to discuss my character development and what I'm going to wear and like the, little details and stuff like that, more than I was, calling her to talk about the actual filming experience, like what I'm, essentially being hired to do. But I found that like the most incredible part of it too, is that I got to like do what I love while I'm there, while I'm dressed as, in full, whatever I could get at the time to be in universe and be able to experience these incredible connections and between essentially strangers, and how this everyone comes together and it's just like playing like a kid again. Like I definitely became obsessed too, and I got the bug. I definitely got the bug.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And how does everybody come together?
As one.
It's one.
Nice.
And that was the thing that one of the things that struck me why I thought this would make a good film is because there is something happening deeply in the subconscious of pop culture. Between Star Wars, it's always been there with Joseph Campbell and with Barbie and all this stuff. And I think there's a it's not even pseudo, I think there's an actual spiritual experience happening on that ship that's really interesting to dive into. People are incredibly moved personally. You know, it shows in the record amount of people who are going to this thing and showing up, but walking away with these deeply emotional experiences. It's not just like, oh, I went and rode on a roller coaster. It's like, no, this thing changed my life.
Yeah, and I want to just stop for a second and circle back to Carly in the beginning, because Carly, I have to say thank you for coming on board with my Facebook call out message. And Tom, if you want to get in here to follow up with anything, I definitely want to hit Carly next.
Oh, yeah.
Is there anything you want to follow up on or ask?
I was just going to say, on top of that, talking about what the spiritual kind of experience was on the Halcyon, if Disney could have bottled that feeling up and sold it to the people, depression and anxiety would be cured. It would just be cured. You could sell that on you take it once a month or something, gone. That's how impactful it was.
Part of it became not quite religious, obviously, because it's still a fake space thing, but it became a pseudo-religious experience for even if you couldn't go to, if you're a Christian or whatever, you can't go to Israel every day, but just knowing that it's there and that it exists made you feel better. That you could go one day, and you couldn't go to the Starcruiser every day. There are a few people that win a lot. They're rich people, but just being able to go once and knowing in your brain that it's there, it just made you feel better knowing that people were all having this experience every day and having their lives changed. But now that it's gone, it's like removing the holy city, or removing whatever church that you go to. It's gone. So you don't have that in the back of your mind anymore. But when it was there, just having that knowledge that it's happening was such a cool thing.
Yeah, I definitely want to circle back to that. But Carly, can I come to you on why you decided to sign on to the project? What you thought was valuable and interesting in doing a doc?
Sure. So that's actually kind of a fun transition. So my background is very nerdy. I'm a professor. I study games. I wrote a book about arcades. I wrote a book about Brenda Laurel, who in the 80s worked at Atari Research and actually designed an immersive theater system that I think is the most direct predecessor for the Starcruiser. And so she later works in VR and stuff, but this idea that you actually would have to use real actors to make it feel real, I think is really important. So anyway, I had gone with my family because I wanted to go someday when my kid could read. She can't read because she's very small. And they announced it was closing. I was like, well, we have to go now, right? And so my family ended up going. I think we got on a plane 5 or 6 days after we got the room. We had no time. And I was so struck by it because two things. One, any kind of script is not complete until it's performed. And any kind of game is incomplete unless it is being played. And I at the second it started getting really covered because it was closing, I was like, oh, it's a game. They didn't tell people it's a game. And I was like, this thing's going to be gone. You were going to miss the complete experience because the game is unplayable. And so I actually reached out to Josh Swee, who made Insert Coin, which is a great documentary about Midway. I had worked with him on that as an expert, which makes me sound very fancy. I'm not very fancy. And I was like, Josh, this thing. And he was like, Carly, I've got 4 projects right now. I'm not going to make a 5th documentary at the same time. And I'm like, fine. Right. And so he's really okay, well, maybe I could do this or I could do that based on my skill set. And then I saw Carrie's post and I was like, this is serendipity. This was exactly the right thing. Cause they all know each other and I didn't know any of them at all. And I'm just like, yeah, sure. Let's do a thing. And so I come at it from a very kind of specific background of all I do all day is pick things apart. And my cabin mates were teasing me because on the last voyage we were on, I was actively trying to manipulate the game. And so I think I got all of the Batu missions except the First Order ones. I was like, oh, good. And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I cannot turn off this part of my brain. Right. And so, yeah, it's been really, really cool. It's really exciting. I love trying to show how much play means to people. And so you were talking about spiritual and religious experiences, and I'm saying this with profound respect for religion and also profound respect for games, which is that we have a century of research showing there's significant overlap in how people play games and how they conduct religious rituals. And so, like, it's not the same. It's also not the same, right? Like,
here. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we've kind of just jumped in headfirst with all this, but all of this is kind of like how, like, the serendipity of it all, kind of like you said, how this last voyage for most of us came together. Like, I was on hold for that day when the last Voyages opened and I couldn't get in. And I would just remember telling myself and telling Taylor that I was like, I'm going to regret this for the rest of my life if I don't go one more time. So, and she would too. She was like, yeah, I'll regret it too if we can't go. So we had to jump on that Facebook random sweet mate finder and do what you did too. Just jump in and be like, strangers, let's go on this space cruise together. And those people that we went are now some of our best friends. We hang out with them like once or twice a week. And then if I didn't go on the cruise, we wouldn't have met them. We wouldn't have met any of you. And I ran into Carrie in the shop of all places. And she asked if I was on the podcast. And I said, oh, yeah, that's me. And then she told me how she watched my YouTube videos that she mentioned from the 8th cruise ever back in March of 2022. And I was like, I can't believe anybody watched those, let alone someone would tell me that they watched them. Because I did it for myself because I just wanted to be able to say, this is something I experienced, you know, because I thought it was going to be, well, I think we all did when we boarded, a once in a lifetime thing. I was like, this is my only time I'm ever doing. And then obviously that was wrong. We did it a second time before they announced it was closing. And I was like, okay, this is going to be like a once a year thing, I think. Maybe once every 2 or 3 years if we space it out, but I'm going to do this a billion times for the rest of my life. And then obviously that changed. I had to do it one last time, but it's just that serendipity of it all and just everyone coming together over that and all the opportunities, that it's brought. Because I probably wouldn't be talking to any of you without that last voyage that I did. Eventually, I would have come across this documentary that you're going to make, and I definitely would have watched the hell out of it. But now that I know it's a thing that's coming about, I'm going to watch this thing maybe once a month. But I've watched thousands of the YouTube videos from everybody imaginable. And like you said, with the gameplay side of it, it's still fun, and I'm still going to continue watching all these videos, but just watching these videos is nowhere near the same as playing it. You know, like, you can watch someone play an Xbox game or whatever, and you get the storyline of it, but you don't get all the deviations that could happen. You don't get to make the choice yourself. So that's the thing. When you're in that ship, you're making the choices yourself and playing the game your way, and that's something that's not now gone.
Well, that's what we intend to continue doing with the Legacy Continues, Evan. With our meetups starting in March.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about those meetups probably down the line of the show. But yeah, that's something we're looking to continue is try to have a gameplay option for people going to Batuu. So I don't know where that's going to take us, but we're all very excited and hoping that it works out half as well as what I think we all want it to.
Mm-hmm.
It's really exciting. And you've been so warm and giving, and that's so typical of the community. Like, you know, generally everyone's been so helpful. And I just want to give a couple little shout outs right now. Maggie Duckworth let me into her cabin of strangers. Christelle Isaka hosted Ben and Kenzie in her cabin. And then the Eftings, Amy and Ben hosted Carly. And Maggie came through and did an interview with us. And then we've had, I also want to, Sean Radigan has already agreed to help fund. And Finn was the one who asked about, are there any famous podcasters? And I was like, yeah, let me take a picture and send it to you. So people are really stepping up to help us. And I'm sure I'm leaving out people now, but I just can't. This what makes it so special, I think, in large part, is the community. And how many people have already agreed to be interviewed? Like, I was just booking interviews this morning, and I've already got more than a dozen people in books, you know, like tons and tons. So, including, and he allowed me to say this, like, Adam Riley is doing a full interview with us.
Oh, yeah, our guy.
Our guy.
Love that, man.
We got him on the podcast a couple months ago, or God, that was 6 months ago.
Yeah, it feels like forever ago.
That was the peak of my life right there. I love that.
That was the best, man. Love that, man.
I know. Like, I feel like when I was talking with him, I felt like I was talking to a celebrity. I mean, amazing.
And it's just, he's such a gem. You could talk to him about anything, and he's going to make it the best conversation you've ever had. So it's, yeah.
So thoughtful. So articulate.
Can I just throw out my other cabin mates? So Ben and Amy are amazing, and also Kelly and Mike Canning were the other folks in the room. So they were like, yeah, we're gonna have all this room for our cosplay, and then I ended up staying with them. And so I'm like, I will keep my suitcase in the corner. I will not obscure stuff. But they were amazing to me, and I was so lucky to meet them. And it was like an awesome experience. It was like going to camp, and everyone's nice.
Yeah, 100%. And this finally gave me a chance to sleep in one of the bunk beds now that I went with strangers. Because the first voyage, it was just me and Taylor, so we used a bed. And then the second voyage, it was me, Taylor, Brad, and Tom. So Taylor and I had
They stuck the two tallest people in the bunk beds, but all right.
That's right, but you all fit.
Yeah, you barely, but we...
But I must admit, now that I have slept in them, they are not that comfortable.
No.
My partner is
the bed's fine.
And he climbed into one when we went as a family just to be like, oh, I wonder what this is like. And he got in and he was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Because he was like, getting in was fine. Getting out was a horrible mistake, right?
Yes.
Like you live there now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The bed is comfortable. They're good beds, but those bunks, they are not comfy at all. Even, I don't care how tall you are, how short you are, they're just not comfy. They look cool though.
That could lead to a bit of the controversy, I think that we'll probably cover in the doc is price versus experience. I was struck by the 4-star hotel approach, valeted bags and car parking, and the food, of course, is insane. Mm-hmm. The parade of waiters coming out the final night and the colors and everything. I mean, it's definitely like going on a cruise ship. The conceit is, you're on an intergalactic cruise ship, and it feels like it in some ways. But then, some of the controversy, and probably some of it would be interesting to talk about maybe, is, the price point. And I was struck, I'll tell you one quick anecdote. We met a father and daughter.
Sean and Lily Martin.
Yeah. And
the spam folks, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
and they're also never connected to my story too, but you guys go ahead first.
It was beautiful. It was one of the things that really struck me, because like you said, it's a place where you can feel safe, and it's a place that encourages joy. And I experienced that 100% myself.
Yeah.
And those two, I was like, so, what's your story? And he's like, well, my daughter and I were separated for a long time, and we didn't have a relationship. I knew she was super into Star Wars. I brought her back, and it's reframed and recreated our entire father-daughter dynamic. And he's like, he started crying. And he's like, and I would pay 10 times what this cost to get that. So there's something there too. I mean, I think it's worth discussing both pro and con. The cost, like, oh, the bed's not so comfortable, I'm paying for a 4-star cruise, whatever. But you can't put a price on what people feel and experience there.
No,
and like you said, it's a game. I have to say real quick, my experience too, I played it like Survivor. I played both sides while trying to make a documentary, which was incredibly challenging and fun.
I bet.
But it confused myself and probably the people I was playing against. But anyway, I digress.
It would be really cool to go, if you went like 50 times or whatever, and you're just like, okay, this next time, I'm not going to interact. I'm just going to film everything. Just sit there. That was something I wanted to get to the point of. I was going to go so often that I was like, this time I'm just going to go and document everything possible. And that's impossible after only 2 or 3 times, because you still want to play. You still want to talk to this character. You still want to go talk to that chemist, or even that passenger, talking to the passengers. We all became characters too. So to get to that point eventually would have been awesome. And we could have actually had, not that your documentary is rushed in any way. I don't mean it like that. It's just we eventually could have had a documentary that was just solely a fly on the wall, someone just sitting there. But then again, it might not be as cool of as documentary as someone that's interacting with the characters and getting those bits personally. But that's something that we could have had one day that is now gone too.
Well, we tried to do that through Carrie. Like, one of the goals of the film is that she's our avatar. And so that we tried to film it as close as we could to, like, let her take you in here and live this. and we filmed the game experience. We tried to film her in every piece of it. Like, we got caught up in the story. Her character's caught up in the story. And you guys could elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, as you all know, who've been on more than once, it's impossible to experience everything. But through me, you get one version, one path,
Yeah.
but also reflection on what it means to who we are as adults and as a community. And the focus is more on adults, not that. Anyway, and also like why it happens, how it happens. I mean, I'm not trying to say I hate kids or anything. I don't have any, but I was really focused on why, especially because kids play and they're encouraged to play. But as adults, to play in this way, even if it is behind this paywall, things happened there for people that just couldn't have happened for them, I think, unless they had done a bunch of self-work through therapy over years, and even then it might not have happened. Mm-hmm. That's what seems to have happened for some people. People came out more confident with a different identity, with a different understanding of who they want to be in the world and who they can be in the world. I would have never tried making this documentary if I hadn't gone on the Starcruiser. Mm-hmm. It touched me that much. It meant that much. What I saw happen was that profound, you know? It is a profound experience.
Oh yeah.
And I've been thinking about, like, if another version happens, if there's any kind of relaunch, but I think this is just a slice in time for a year and a half that we all got to have, and it's very special. And I'm moved right now, and you can't see it, but like I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about that, because we have that, and it's meaningful.
It's only the 71,000 of us, or 72,000, whatever it is, that are canon in Star Wars that other people can't necessarily say, right? And it's moving. I'll sit there thinking about it, and I can't thank you all enough for putting the documentary together, because this will give, like Evan mentioned earlier, give me a chance to show my daughter one day, who the first thing I said, you know, she's two months right now, she's 9 weeks, she's 2 months and a week. So first thing I think I turned to Evan and said as we were walking out, I said, I have to bring Lily on this. And she wasn't born yet at that time. And then 2 weeks later, on my wedding anniversary, we got the news that this thing was closing. So it's like the first thing I thought of was, you know, I can't take Lily. I can't take my wife, Courtney, because I know she would have loved it as well. But we have this to look forward to. And we have the memories. We have the thing that only we say that we did. You know, Adam Riley, to bring him back, said, we are the beloved who loved on the actual Halcyon itself. So... What's like the top thing that you all want to convey from this documentary? What's like the one message? If you could nail it down and say, this is what I want to tell, what would it be?
This is early days. I mean, I'm sure we all have a different answer for that. A documentary tells you how to make it. Mm-hmm. And we're just getting started, you know, in the process. You guys, the things you're saying today are really resonating with me. So there's a lot, you know, there's not just this deep experience, but there's also like the fun of it. There's the game of it. There's the politics of it. There's the Disney of it. There's a lot going on in this story. Mm-hmm. And so it's a difficult question to answer until you've completely probed it. Okay. You know, you might have.
I think for me, I want to communicate that the Starcruiser has been a very powerful, special lens through which to understand who we are as people, what we need, and the positive way in which we can come together to create meaning and connection. That's my tagline. What about the rest of you, Kenzie, Carly, Jonathan? Jonathan, I'd like to have you chime in, especially because your second cruise, you became somebody I don't know. I don't know who you are. You were an introvert. You became this person. Please give us a little taste of that, because I think that speaks to like why we're making it.
Yeah.
I did have a really interesting, super fun, and meaningful experience with it, especially maybe the second time around, because I realized that I could really get into the role play character aspect of it. And I'm a fairly socially introverted person, and I realized that it could be this thing that kind of overcomes that. it's all of a sudden you are freed from that, or at least that's how it worked for me. So probably works that way for some other somewhat introverted people, where I was just another character. And the second time around, I realized that more. So I got really into being a character, and that was just a really interesting experience, really powerful, and a lot of fun and meaningful. So I would, as far as circling back to like what we want people to, take from this doc, hopefully, I think what an experience like that can be. Because I think from some people's points of view outside of it, it sounds like a thrill ride. It sounds like a luxury hotel or something. It sounds like, I don't know. It sounds like a lot of things to some people, but it's like we just want to capture and convey what that experience can really be. That it's really a lot more interesting, that a lot more powerful for some people, and just more. It's not, it's not a luxury hotel, and it's not a theme park ride. It's just this complex thing. Try to capture it.
Do we need to make an audio adjustment? I'm hearing some static. Is that us?
I don't know. I don't hear anything.
I hear it a little bit. I think it is on your side. It's more or less background noise. It's really okay.
Okay.
Cool.
I think that's good. That sounded good. So,
Carly?
I mean, I'm probably the worst person to ask for anything like pithy or cool or portable, but for me, like the part that I was like, this needs capturing is like, play is so important. It's so critically important to who we are. It's part of what makes human culture, right? Like, and also though, like, I think there's like 1,000 interesting things here about like LARP and how it works as a community practice and what makes it hard to scale. I think there's a lot about immersive theater and what makes it like emotionally and actually like materially costly to maintain. Like, I think there's a lot of interesting things here about kind of community and cultural production. And I don't know. I mean, I think there's 10,000 ways to look at it. The second I came off, I was like contacting friends that are LARP experts because I'm so nerdy that I know LARP experts. And I was like, I have a question, right? And they're like answering all my questions. So like, it took so much for me to make sense of it. And I think it's exciting to have something that is kind of hard to pin down and hard to understand and try and get that in a form that you can communicate it to people that weren't familiar with it. I think it'll be really exciting for game designers. I think it'll be exciting for Star Wars fans. I think it'll be exciting for theme park people. I think it'll be exciting for immersive theater folks. So I think it's an important example of a lot of different things, and I think being able to share that with people is important.
How about you, Kenzie?
For sure. I think that's probably the most important part, is like kind of sharing it for people that did get to go but didn't get to see everything that they wanted, but also to show the people that haven't got to go. Like Tom said, he wanted to take his wife and Lily, and like when they announced it was closing, I immediately got on the phone too with my brother and my mom and my dad who live in Indiana. And that's why I love the Disney theme parks, is because we used to come every year as a family. And this is something we didn't get to do as a family. And I was like, okay, this is closing. I'll pay for you guys to go, whatever it takes to happen for all of us to go. We have to do this. And we just couldn't make it work for all my family to come with me. So if they have even a chance to see a sliver of what it looked like, it would mean, I think, a lot to them, but also to me too, just to be able to have that somewhat shared experience with people like them. And it just, the people that we never got to go with, I think is kind of the biggest thing that everyone asks, like, oh, how was this trip? Or how was your last cruise? They want to know, and you can't really describe it. Even to people that you're friends and family with, they still kind of look at you a little weird. So just to have something to show them might help, I feel like, and might make it a little better. And that's kind of a big takeaway from, I think, a lot of people's experiences, especially recently in the past few months.
You know, on the other hand, for that conversation, you kind of look on the other end of it, and I can't remember who said it exactly, but this thing is a lot of things, and not a lot of people know what it is from the outside. I'm assuming you guys are going to cover the marketing aspect or lack of on Disney's part with this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because that's something we talk about constantly, and it's just like blows our mind. It's like,
Yeah,
That's
and
what.
this is,
Oh, go ahead, Carly. Sorry.
okay. I was saying, and this is some of what like lead researcher has meant is like I'm tracking down industry experts and stuff so that we can put this in context, because I think, you know, there's people that have consulted on theme park and attraction design for like 20, 30, 40 years, and they're looking at this and they have really sharp insights about kind of like what happened and why. You know, I think Disney's history with marketing is super interesting too. Like they actually used to not pay for advertising because they didn't believe in it. Now obviously they advertise, but almost all of the marketing and advertising is handled internally by an internal team who are highly skilled and highly experienced. But if you have someone that knows how to use a hammer and you throw them a screw, what happens?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for the most part, they obviously desperately needed to advertise this, but there's a select few people like me that are like, anything Disney does with Star Wars, I'm going to go to. I don't care what it is. Because I've liked 98% of what they've done with Star Wars. So I'll go there.
Well, but it's interesting. I have, well, two things. I have members of my family who are complete Star Wars fanatics who are mad at me that I got to do this. So thank God we're making the film, but also didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's, to Carly's point, this is going to be a really interesting topic to get into in this film, because I think it says something about late stage capitalism. Like, I have my own opinions about it. I read the Forbes article. There's a lot of good writing out there about this. You know, it's an award-winning, one-of-a-kind thing. It's being shut down because of money. Mm-hmm. And, you know, shareholders demanding more money is ultimately what it comes down to. And, you know, we're seeing this reflected in the entire culture. So there's something really interesting to dig into there.
Yeah, and I think that's the broad piece of this is a piece that's important to me and why I wanted to make it. But another piece is about, you know, you ask me, like, what's the one thing? And I keep thinking of the one things. And that's part of why it's interesting to me, is because I keep reflecting and thinking, and I like to reflect and analyze, and I still can't get to the bottom of it. But something else that surfaces for me is that it values something that I've tried to embrace in my life, and that's risk-taking and being open and playful as an adult. And that pushes against expectations and cultural norms. So I like this idea that this is a space that encouraged that. And I also want to point out, on a totally different topic, but going back to the price and the marketing, this per person, if you split it with Sweetmates, doesn't cost anything more than staying at the Poly. You can stay at the Poly as one person for the same as splitting up with Sweetmates. And so this contextualization that it was super expensive is a bunch of bullshit. Like, I'm sorry, but if you looked into it, you could have done this yourself for the same price as that. Now, would I ever be able to stay at the Poly? No, but if for the same price, am I going to take all that amazing food, all those amazing cocktails, the acting, the technology, the gaming, the community building, the beauty, the surprise, the delight? That's what I'm after with this talk, is like all these issues that the Starcruiser brings up. And
the issues they also had, and it's the issues that I take with my fellow Star Wars fans, is anything Disney put out that's Star Wars, they just hate it. If it's not the original trilogy, they rag on it. If it's not their Luke Skywalker, their Princess Leia, what do you want? You want her in the slave bikini again? Get the hell out of here. Like, we have moved on from that. And I say it over and over and over again. Jedi Talk loves the sequel trilogy. The Last Jedi is my favorite movie. I love that flick. I love what they did with Luke Skywalker, and I don't care how controversial that is. It's like, it was good, and it's going to get the love eventually. But anyway, it's like, you see Rey, they see Kylo Ren, and it's just automatically hate, and you're getting online, and you're just, I don't want to get too into that, but that brought it down too, and it's so unfair. It's so unfair.
Yeah, and I think
the content that's been created recently, like on Disney Plus, that's amazing content.
Yep.
So I agree. Like, and I'm sorry, but like, even though we have Chewbacca on the Starcruiser, this doesn't even have to be necessarily in the Star Wars world proper. Like, you know, exactly, to be so powerful. That's also really interesting to me. I love that it was.
But to your point, it may be why they didn't market directly to the Star Wars community, perhaps.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, they've already got a resentment. Maybe we'll just leak it out there. That's all really interesting to me. I mean, because I'm a person who goes to Disney. I lived in Southern California for over 20 years and had a season pass at Disneyland and embraced the whole Disney thing. I really enjoy it. I went last year before I even got involved with this. So I get all of that. And, it's interesting to me that they're not trying to make those two worlds collide more. I mean, they are with the theme park exhibit, but,
Kenzie,
Yeah.
Carly, sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think, a couple of things. Like, one, my daughter actually thinks we went to space. Like, she's starting to parse out that we did not go to space. But like, we went to a talk by a physicist at my job, and she's talking about like when we went on the Starcruiser and we went to space. Like, that's what this physics talk is about, right? And so like, it was extremely effective immersion for children, right? But I think they advertised, like, again, on the marketing mess, I showed kind of our rough cut trailer to a friend of mine who's another game study scholar, which is an embarrassing thing to have as a job title, but whatever, we're going with it. And she was like, I didn't know it was a LARP. I'm so mad I didn't know it was a LARP. I would have gone immediately if I knew it was a LARP, right? And I think they advertised it like it was a theme park thing, because it is a theme park thing, but that meant they missed the people that are dropping like thousands of dollars on 2 days at Comic-Con every year, right? Like, and that's actually a huge section of the audience for this.
Yeah.
And so how do you advertise something that's never been done before? What I think fascinates me as an outsider to all of this is like, this is singular. There is nothing like it, I don't think. I mean, we're going to examine the LARP culture and some of the larger scale LARPs, but still not at this Hollywood Disney level. Nearly $1 billion level. No one else is going to do that. So how do you promote that? How do you advertise that? I mean, I think that's a really interesting question to ask, because it's like, how do you do something that's never done before? They did it with the concept of the thing itself, but how do you communicate that?
Well, that's a problem.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, that's a problem that no one has ever had, even Disney, since Disneyland opened in 1955.
Right.
So, like, they didn't even know how to handle that either back then. In 55, it opened, and it was kind of a failure, too, for a little bit at the start, at the beginning. And
Walt's probably smart.
Yeah, and they obviously let that grow and become the success that it is today. So, and you could say that with all of the Disney parks. My dad tells me stories of going to the Magic Kingdom in the 70s. He's like, it was empty. It was not popular. No one was there. Euro Disneyland back in the day was a huge failure, and it like ruined Michael Eisner. But like, it's still around today and making billions of dollars.
It's a great park.
And yeah, I haven't been. It's on my bucket list, but like, it looks amazing, and I would never call that a failure. It's just they let those things breathe and grow. But Disneyland, they did not know how to market, obviously, because it was game changing. And then it did change the game. And this was the next thing. It took, I don't know how many years, that 80 years, 70 years, whatever. I'm not good at math. I'm stupid. But they didn't know how to market it because, like you said, it's never been done before. But how about you just give it some time and let it succeed? Because all of their history, and I don't know how much of the history you're going to touch in your documentary, but like, Animal Kingdom opened and everyone was like, oh, I don't need to go there. I'll go to SeaWorld or my local zoo. So then Disney had to shift their marketing to call it Not a Zoo. That was like a phrase they made called Not a Zoo. And they spelled it different to make it like Swahili or whatever, but that's the same idea this had. Like, everyone was like, it's just a hotel. Well, it's not a hotel. So I don't know how much of like the Disney history side you're going to touch, but that's a problem they've always had.
I want to just tap into Kenzie, our camera person, who had no clue, no understanding. Kenzie, seeing it through that lens and being our camera person, can you maybe talk about what you think the documentary and the experience, like what was the power of it and your experience of it, being first timer, kind of out of the loop?
Yeah, so one thing that I had mentioned to the team is, like, I had not, the only Disney experience that I have, I mean, I would call myself, like, I love Disney, everything Disney, but not necessarily Disney parks down at Disney World. The last time I was there, when I was like 2 years old, don't remember anything except for one of the monkeys from the Jungle Book stepping on my toe and being like being traumatized by that, and which was sad because it's like my parents spent all this money for me to go. But so this was kind of my first time back to go to Disney, and I didn't feel like I was really at Disney per se. Like I felt like I had entered this whole other side of Disney that like we had gotten to go do some of the resorts and things like that. But and so I think that it was interesting to be able to enter this. I'm like going to Disney, but not going to Disney. I didn't know how to really explain it to people. But for my perspective on the film itself and what direction we want to go and what we want to highlight is, for me personally, I would love to highlight the reminder. For me, it was such a pure reminder of the goodness in humanity. When you strip down, it's like we're constantly in an age where it's like, oh, I hate people. I hate, it's like, you're getting flicked off in the car and people yelling at you or whatever, just road rage and stuff like that. Or too many times it's like we forget the power of community and the power that like strangers coming together with a commonality can create. And I just was baffled. Like I knew that what I was getting into was going to be emotional, but I didn't realize that it was going to be like a therapy session for me almost. And not even to the fact that it was in the moment, I'm like running, gunning, we're playing, we're all having fun. But I think the second that we got off of our departure from the ship, the second me and Carrie were like alone and we actually got time to reflect, I start bawling like a baby, like not even like just tears. I'm like crying, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I just experienced. Like this just pure reminder of the goodness in humans and so I think that that's what I want to show, is that there is power in community and play, and that we forget as adults to play, and how therapeutic it can be.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. And the community of it, I think, probably all stems from somewhere when we're on the ship, we all just like subconsciously start like rooting for each other and cheering for each other. Like if we see someone talking to a character, we don't go, you don't get jealous and like, I wish I was talking to that character. You're like, oh, that is so cool. I wonder what they're saying. And you're like, you see people having other moments and you cheer and celebrate that.
Well, I noticed too that those passengers that were having those moments enhanced my experience.
Yeah.
Like for me to be able to witness, for example, Maggie Duckworth was Taj and was fully in character the entire time and so knowledgeable of Star Wars background. She enhanced my experience because of her responses to these actors. And Evan too, I know that you were on our cruise, correct? Like we were all on.
Yeah.
And we had talked a little while, and you handed the stormtroopers those certificates, correct?
Yeah, yep. I can't wait to see your perspective of that, because I videotaped like 45 seconds on my phone, but I think you have most of the interaction.
Yeah,
I really want to see
the whole thing.
And
I'd love to get that to you once we get to work. And
something so silly as giving a fake like paper certificate to two guys in plastic, but it like was one of the highlights of my cruise for me, because like the way those two guys played off each other and played off of me was hilarious, and it was just. And I didn't expect it or plan it to make other people's voyages better, but it did. I was just doing it to tell those two stormtroopers thank you, because like they don't get a lot of praise. They get a lot of hate. Not hate, but they're forgotten.
I gave them a lot of hate.
You playful hate. You did the playful hate. You and Gary had a good sparring.
We did.
Battle,
we did.
I just wanted to tell them I appreciate them, but it turned into an awesome little moment, and I can't wait to see your perspective of it, because that was something that I was really looking forward to doing, because I made awards for all the characters, little certificates, and gave a little bit of thought behind them, but for those two guys, I was like, okay, I'm going to give one an award that says Trooper of the Year, The other one's going to be jealous, so I'm going to give him one and tell them that it's co-trooper of the year. And then they're going to fight over it. And then I'm going to tell one of them afterwards, I'll be like, but I really think it was you. And that was how it played out. That was the story of it all. So just putting a lot of thought behind 2 pieces of paper. So silly, but that's a microcosm of the Starcruiser.
And see, I'm struck by 2 things. One, that everybody still calls it a ship.
Yes.
Afterwards, which is great. The other thing is, too, is like, to Carly's point, that kind of interaction is so complex, it can't be repeated, right? It has to be done in a second, third voyage. And that the fans are bringing their perspective back to it and then playing on top of playing. So you've got interactive theater. People are going home, coming back with ideas of how they can play with the actors.
Yep.
Is incredible. I mean, that is a stunning thing to me, you know?
As well as all the gifting and exchanging. We can get into all that, and the doc will definitely cover that. But I just
that's a huge thing. Go ahead.
I just tell you, Evan, that little scene might have made the rough cut of the trailer, so you're probably going to see that in the trailer, my friends.
Oh, my God. That just made my whole day.
Hell yeah.
That's amazing.
You're going to make him cry.
I didn't expect that. Oh, I'm going to cry for sure. I will definitely cry watching it. But I just wanted to give 2 stormtroopers, 2 guys in plastic suits, a piece of paper, and it spawned into being a part of a trailer-rated documentary. Like, that is how crazy this thing is. And like you said, we all call it a ship. It's like, we talked about it when it first opened. It's weird that you like drive through backstage. You see the backside of Galaxy's Edge. You see the big gray building. But as soon as you get inside, the magic trick works. They show you how the magic trick works, but it works. When you're on the ship, you don't say, I'm going to go down to the second floor of the building. Or you don't say, like, once we go back to this building. No, you're going to the ship. You're on the ship. But just a big cement building
hotel.
that you drive by.
Yeah.
Kenzie, you were going to say, I want to make sure, is there something you want to say about that Starcruiser moment, the Stormtrooper moment? Kenzie?
Oh, no, I was just saying, Evan, I'll definitely get you that full piece whenever we get some time to be able to get it to you.
That's going to be so good. Because I remember after it happened, I didn't see you in the corner filming it, but after it happened, I turned and you were there, and you're like, I got it. Like you whispered it to me, and I was like, yes, so cool. I didn't even see you there until it was all done, but that was great. I can't wait to see it, and I'm beyond blessed and excited that it's in the documentary. But the gifting side of things too, that could be a whole documentary, because I've never been to Celebration. I'm going in 2025. I've never been to Comic-Con, any convention ever. The closest thing I have is I used to do, this is also Disney history too, something called First Robotics. Back in the 90s and 2000s, they had a high school robotics competition where you built like robots, and it wasn't like battle bots where they fought, but you had to like play a game. And it was, the championship was hosted at Epcot, back when Epcot was about that kind of stuff. But that's a side story. But that had a sub-community in it where all of the teams, the high school kids, they had little trinkets and little things they would trade with each other, pins or plushies or whatever. So that's my only experience with that until the Starcruiser. First and second voyage, I didn't see anything like that going on. But this third voyage, I felt bad that I hardly had any. I had a few stickers to trade, but I was like, I don't have anything compared to what y'all are trading and they're trading. And I have a whole shelf behind me. It's on the bottom, but it's just things that people gave me on the ship.
I have that too.
Insane. And then the same thing happened at the Heroes of the Halcyon meetup. People were giving away, trading things there. And now it's carried over to Batuu. Every day in Galaxy's Edge, characters get things, other guests get things, cast members at Document 7 get things. So this trading and giving away thing that has stemmed from the cosplay community and the convention community to the Starcruiser community to now the parks community is a very astounding thing that just no one saw coming. But when you break it down into its history, it makes sense where it came from and where we're at.
I want to make sure as we're kind of on the last lane here, getting towards the end, we like to cap them around 60 minutes. Is there any kind of last thoughts you guys want to give to the airwaves, to the HoloNet out there? And if not, I want everybody on one of the last things we do today as we wrap up. Who is your favorite character from the Galactic Starcruiser? I want everybody to answer that question.
I became obsessed with Wani.
Oh, I love
still
Wani.
love her very much and became like a little schoolgirl when I was around her.
That's
I
spectacular.
need more content for her because, like, I just finished Tom Let Me Borrow It, Princess and the Scoundrel, and it gives us some Viola Keevan stuff, and that's awesome.
It
I'll
does.
take anything Keevan. But I would like to know more about Wani because all we know is, like, the planet she's from, and she's a musician, and that's about it. Like, give us some more about her. Get her in a comic or a book somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So
That'd be
give
easy.
us some more on her.
Get her on
Yeah.
Batu.
Yeah.
That too.
Mhm.
But she's
Anybody else?
it's hard. I can't say she's
Oh,
my
I
favorite
love-
by far, but
What was the captain's name?
Captain Keevan.
Captain
Not the
Keevan.
captain, but the bad captain. The
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant.
Oh,
Oh my God, I loved him. I was so obsessed with him, and he was so funny.
he's the
And the
best.
way he'd come in with his snide remarks while you're just sitting there trying to play the game in the front of it, and he'd just be like, "And what are you doing here, young man?" You know, and I'd be like, "I'm just trying to play the game." And he goes, "Oh, really?" You know, I was obsessed with him the whole time. I was like watching him as an actor and also as a character. I thought he was so hilarious and fun. He was great.
Oh yeah.
Me, I'm gonna give unfortunately, I apologize, 3-part answer, which is
Let's go for it.
which is one.
That's something I would do.
I really love all those characters. It's really hard to pick one because like you had the superstar. It's like the Beyonce.
Oh, yeah.
The Beyonce of the Star Wars universe is. I don't know. There's all kinds of great stuff about these characters, but like Ben, I kind of love Lieutenant Croy so much. He's so entertaining, and I think I really love a entertaining villain. A funny villain just gets me. So he was great. But part 3, my secondary favorite thing about the characters, it's probably the Sajas,
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
just as a group, because there are multiple Sajas. But the way that they have to be these characters that embody a certain thing, and it's this. Those are some of the most intense reactions I saw from people, where they're helping them get in touch with the Force, and sometimes use the Force. And that whole thing just brought out like a really intense thing for people. So I love watching those actors who played the Sajas do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that I don't want to like talk too much into that too, but like that's something that the marketing is really bad, but they didn't market anything on the Sasha. They're in none of those trailers or commercials. Like you think you would want to try to play up the fact that like they're not officially Jedi, but when you think Star Wars, you think the Force and you think Jedi. So shouldn't you advertise that there is multiple characters on the ship that you can interact with that will give you the Jedi stuff, the Force stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
They shouldn't have, and I don't want them to spoil the climate simulator in the advertisements and the rocks, but just hint at that somehow. Just be like,
Yeah.
remember seeing, Luke make rocks move or whatever for the first time, and then
Yeah.
cut to the Saja, and then like something like that. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to market it, but neither were they, obviously.
Yeah.
True.
Carly, did you?
Carly.
Yeah. Who's your favorite?
Sure. I thought about this while you were talking. I think I would actually say SK, and it's partially because like my like whole history of engaging with Star Wars is about like the droids and like adorable space creatures. Like, right, the Ewok special was very obsessively watched on like crappy VHS in my childhood. So but yeah, I really like SK, and like my daughter's also really into droids, so it was like this fun like thing we shared of just like, oh my gosh, there's a robot right there, right? Like
That's cool.
was amazing. So I really like SK, but I also think in general there's so much there about modeling bravery and self-sacrifice and kind of thinking about the greater good, and I really love that.
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
And I found out on this last voyage that it was SK's choice to get captured. Like, they chose it themselves. It wasn't like Linka being like, hey, you should turn yourself in, or Sammy. It was SK saying, I'm going to do it.
Oh.
Brave.
It's insane.
Brave
So
droid.
it just builds on that character even more.
I also love that SK is has they them pronouns too, which is representative for our non-binary group. And from what we had learned that from our Maggie interview is that the passengers kind of incorporated that. Correct, Carrie? Was that right?
Or that it happened in development with the actors, but maybe, I'm not sure. But it was like organic. It kind of happened. It wasn't designated that way.
I think I heard that too. I think it just kind of happened. Like it was more or less the passengers maybe that just made them. So yeah.
Well, I bet there's a whole sect of people that didn't know what the droid's like identity or gender was, so they probably started saying they, and it just kind of stuck, and everyone went with it. No questions asked, because like, why would you ask? It's fine.
Carrie, how about you?
Favorite character?
Yes.
Two-part answer, two-part. Okay, so favorite character definitely Sajas, because I had one of those, sorry, kind of cliche, broke down crying in the climate simulator moments after talking about some stuff and getting into some stuff with the rocks moving. But as far as like kinship, like I felt the most kinship with and had the most fun with, who was it? Come on, who had the most fun with and kinship with? I bet you could guess.
Gotta be Rafe.
You know it, man. Rafe was the boy. Like, he was totally like, I was like, I'm a total scoundrel. I'm always on the move and doing that. Did you have something to add about that?
Nope.
Oh, okay. And before we wrap, I just want to finally but we will have, if anybody wants to contribute, we are going to have more opportunities for that, including on our website. We are connected with our local film society, the Louisville Film Society. They are a nonprofit. You can donate for a tax write-off, and that's going to be on our website. We also have, we're going to talk about Instagram, Carly and John.
Well, that's getting fired up. So there'll be the social medias happening to get people connected to this thing and to get them unfolding information and stuff so they can see what we're doing, and if they're interested in it, the way to follow it. So that'll be happening.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right.
Other updates, y'all? Anything else we should share out?
I just, kind of like my closing thought from me, there's a Terry Pratchett quote in The We Three Men that I keep thinking about the whole time working on this, which is, it doesn't stop being magic just because you know how it works. And I think I love that so much. And that's part of what I love about all these things is like, it is magic and you can pick it apart and it's still magic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we still don't know how half of it works, but the parts that we do know how they work still blows our mind. It's still magic.
Yeah.
Yes,
cool.
as somebody pointed out earlier, you see the trick. It doesn't matter. It's still an amazing trick. It doesn't matter that you see kind parts of it. Yeah,
it's just that good. It's just that good. But I was already looking forward to your trailer, but now knowing that little Stormtrooper moments in there, that trailer is going to be, as soon as it drops, I'll be stopping whatever I'm doing to watch it and then sharing it across all of our platforms. I can't wait to see that trailer. It's something pretty incredible because we've got plenty of vlogs from the ship, and Ordinary Adventures just put out a 4-hour supercut.
Damn.
I haven't watched it yet, but they said like the full story, so I'm gonna watch it and see how close they covered the full story. But that's still nothing like a documentary. So we've got this new aspect to look forward to. Thousands of podcasts, thousands of vlogs, but now we have a unified documentary to look forward to, and if all the communities, this community is definitely going to be the one that helps you the most. So I'm looking forward to how everyone contributes and continues to help all of you with this amazing adventure you've got going on.
I cannot thank you enough for allowing us to come on.
Absolutely.
And thank you to the audience and the Star Cruisers listening. So many people have been so trusting and supportive. We are working outside of our regular jobs to get this done and make it right. And a special thank you to Kenzie, who is working her effing butt off right now on editing. So
nice. The unsung hero. We got to make sure that your story is sung.
Well, this episode has sung. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Kenzie, Carrie, Ben, John, Carly, everybody who's been on with us. You guys have been fantastic. Hey, feel free to jump on Jedi Talk whenever you'd like. If you're in Orlando, we're local. Just hit us up. If you want to join, update people. Can I ask one pressing question before we sign off? Do you have a target date in mind for the trailer?
Oh gosh.
Kenzie, that's you.
It could be rough too. Just not a specific day, maybe a month.
Evan, I need a date and a time. Okay. Don't
Okay,
misapproximate crap.
Fair enough.
Sorry, my dog's barking.
Oh, it's fine. Mine's been
but,
trying to get in my office.
Yeah, we're trying. I'm trying not to like put too much of a timeline on it, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to give it a month. I think.
Okay.
Dang.
We won't hold you to
Right.
that. Obviously, I know it's going to be
But
epic.
we'll definitely
So
have something more concrete by then for sure. So.
very good.
Nice.
Well,
And of course we'll share it with y'all.
awesome.
That'd be the best Christmas present, just seeing that trailer.
And I have high expectations for trying to have a full rough cut, or at least most of a rough cut of the whole thing by the time Halcyon happens, if and when it happens, and or by like a deadline, like the 1 year anniversary of the closure or something. So like I hope to
Okay.
have something substantial to share with the community within about a year. Like I'm gonna jam on this all summer. I'm a teacher. I have summer off, so like I'm gonna try and like really, and hopefully we'll have money by then, and we can have Kenzie working more on it and getting things together. So.
All right.
Nice.
Gotcha.
That's awesome.
That's spectacular.
We cannot wait.
Yeah, we can't wait. This has been awesome. I know this will be a great episode to the masses out there. Well, thank you again for joining. You guys have been great. We have been Jedi Talk. Again, follow us, Jedi Talk Podcast, on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.com/Jedi Talk. Stay safe in the galaxy. May the Force be with you.
Always, and Tabooey Tay.
Rise, Jedi Knight.